12 Commandments of God. 1. Worship one God alone. There is no other God besides me. In a distant kingdom there was a king named David. He was very wise and reverent toward God. Thanks to his loyalty to the Lord, his land was always prosperous, and the people lived in peace and abundance. One day merchants from faraway lands came to David's palace. They brought many precious goods along with magnificent idols and advised the king to worship additional gods to gain more strength and blessings. "Your Majesty," they said, "the world is vast, with many different gods. If you worship them all, your kingdom will never face calamity." At first, David found their advice reasonable. However, after a long night of contemplation, he prayed to God and realized that the Lord had always been the only one to protect and bless his people throughout history. King David decided not to follow the merchant's counsel. The next morning, he gathered the entire court and declared, "Only the Lord is the Most High and the only true God. He has protected us through every hardship, and we need no other gods. We will continue to worship him alone." As time passed, David's kingdom grew even more powerful and prosperous. Neighboring nations admired his steadfastness, and his land became a symbol of unwavering faith in the one true God. Lesson: we do not need to seek strength or divine help from any other gods. When we place our complete trust in the Lord, we will receive true protection and blessings. 2. Do not make idols. Do not create images to worship. Nam, known for being a devout believer, but he gradually became influenced by those around him. When he saw his neighbors creating small idols and believing that they would bring luck and blessings, Nam decided to carve a statue from precious wood to worship in his home. Day and night, Nam prayed before the statue, hoping that good things would come his way. However, no matter how hard he tried, his life remained difficult. He grew frustrated and began to doubt the power of the statue. One day, a pastor passing through the village visited Nam's house. Seeing the statue, the pastor asked, "Why do you worship something made by your own hands when God is the creator of all things?" Hearing this, Nam felt awakened. He realized that he had misplaced his faith. Instead of worshiping God alone, he had sought comfort in material things made by human hands. Immediately, Nam burned the statue and returned to sincere worship of God. Strangely enough, from the moment Nam abandoned the statue, his life began to change. He felt a sense of inner peace and started to notice small blessings in his everyday life. He understood that true faith must be placed in God, not in lifeless idols. Lesson: faith should not rely on material objects or idols made by humans. Only sincere worship and trust in God can bring true peace and blessings. 3. Do not misuse the name of God. Do not use God's name improperly. In a small village, there was a man named Ken, known for being wise but frequently using God's name to make oaths. Whenever he wanted to convince others or prove his words, Ken would add, "I swear by God." One time, Ken sold a cow to his neighbor. He knew the cow was old and unfit for work, but he lied, claiming it was healthy. To gain the buyer's trust, he said, "I swear by God's name that this cow is in good condition." Trusting his words, the neighbor bought the cow. However, just a few days later, the cow died from exhaustion. The neighbor felt deceived and was very angry. Sometime later, Ken himself had an accident and needed help. He went to the same neighbor and pleaded, "I swear by God's name, I truly need your help this time." But the neighbor coldly responded, "Your previous oath deceived me. I can't trust you anymore, even if you invoke God's name." Ken realized he had lost the trust of others by misusing God's name. He felt deep regret and prayed, asking for God's forgiveness for exploiting his name for selfish purposes. From that moment on, Ken never used God's name carelessly again. He understood that God's name is sacred and should only be used with respect and sincerity. Lesson: God's name is sacred and must be used with reverence. Misusing it to make oaths or deceive others not only destroys trust but also disrespects the sanctity of his name. 4. Keep the Sabbath day, a day of rest and worship of God. In a small town there was a baker named Anna. She was very hard-working, waking up early in the morning and working late into the night to support her family. Wanting to earn more income, Anna decided to work on Sundays instead of resting and worshiping God as he used to. As time went by, Anna's bakery became busier, but she also grew increasingly tired and exhausted. She no longer had time for her family or to attend church services. Despite all her efforts, Anna didn't feel happy or at peace. One day, the town's pastor visited Anna and said, "You know, God gave us the Sabbath to rest and renew our spirit. When you set aside time to worship him, you will find peace in your soul and new strength." Anna thought deeply about the pastor's advice. Finally, she decided to close her shop on Sundays and dedicate the day to her family and worship. At first, Anna was worried that she would lose customers and her income would decrease. But something strange happened. Her customers became even more loyal, and her business continued to thrive. More importantly, and felt healthier and more at peace. She had time to spend with her family and felt a closer connection to God. Lesson: keeping the Sabbath is not just about resting. It's also a time to worship God and renew spiritual strength. By following this commandment, we not only restore our physical health, but also receive peace and blessings from the Lord. 5. Honor your parents. Honor your parents to live long on the land. Once upon a time in a small village, there was a boy named Max. He was intelligent and lively, admired by many people. However, Max often disobeyed his parents, believing they were too old-fashioned and didn't understand the modern world. One day, Max wanted to go on a trip with his friends, but his mother advised him, "You shouldn't travel far during the rainy season. The mountain roads will be dangerous." Max ignored his mother's warning, thinking she was over-anxious, and decided to join the trip anyway. Just as his mother had warned, a heavy rainstorm hit on the way back. The slippery mountain roads caused Max and his friends to have an accident. Max severely injured his leg and had to stay in the hospital for several weeks. Throughout that time, his mother stayed by his side, tirelessly caring for him. Seeing his mother exhausted from worry and care, Max finally realized the unconditional love and sacrifice parents give to their children. He felt deep regret for not listening to his mother and for his previous disrespectful behavior. After recovering, Max knelt before his mother and said, "I'm sorry for not listening to you and failing to respect you. I promise to honor and cherish you from now on." From that day on, Max not only took care of his mother, but also listened to his parents' advice. His life gradually became happier and more fulfilling, and he felt blessed for honoring his parents. Lesson: honoring your parents is not just a duty, but a way to receive blessings and peace in life. Parents love and sacrifice for their children, and by respecting them, we show gratitude and gain valuable lessons that enrich our lives. 6. Do not kill. Killing is not permitted. In a peaceful village, there were two close friends named James and John. They grew up together, sharing both joys and sorrows. However, one day they had a conflict over a business misunderstanding. Anger consumed James, and he decided to confront John and settle the matter. Blinded by rage, James grabbed a knife and headed to John's house. Upon seeing James, his fury exploded. He rushed toward his friend, intending to hurt him to release his anger. But just as the knife was about to strike, a child's cry rang out. It was John's son, running toward his father and hugging him tightly. James froze, as if awakened from a nightmare. He realized that if he harmed John, he wouldn't just destroy his friend's life, but also take away a father from an innocent child. The knife slipped from his hand, and James fell to his knees, weeping. "I'm sorry, John," James sobbed. "I let my anger blind me." John, without holding a grudge, said, "Life is sacred. We can solve any problem without hurting each other." After that incident, James and John mended their friendship. James learned that anger is not worth sacrificing someone's life. He practiced controlling his emotions and sought peaceful solutions whenever conflicts arose. Lesson: life is sacred and no one has the right to take it away. Anger is only a temporary emotion, and choosing forgiveness or reconciliation always leads to better outcomes. Respecting life not only preserves peace, but also helps us become more compassionate and understanding. 7. Do not commit adultery. Protect the sanctity of marriage. David and Susan had been married for over 10 years, building a family filled with love and mutual respect. They had two lovely children and always tried to overcome difficulties together. However, at work, David met a younger colleague named Jesse, who was very kind and understanding of him. Gradually, David found himself attracted to Jesse. Their cheerful conversations and Jesse's caring words made him feel happier than the stress he experienced at home. One day, Jesse hinted that she also had feelings for David, which left him feeling conflicted. However, one evening, when David saw his wife staying up late to sew clothes for their children and prepare for the family's needs, he suddenly realized the precious things he had. He recalled all the times Susan had always stood by him during the toughest moments, from when he started his career to when they built their current life together. David recognized that his feelings for Jesse were fleeting, but his family and his life partner were sacred and needed protection. He decided to end the relationship with Jesse before it went too far. David returned to his family, loving his wife and children more, and learned to cherish the small things in marriage. He and Susan participated in activities together to rekindle their affection and nurture their relationship. Lesson: marriage is a sacred commitment that needs to be protected. Momentary attractions are not worth destroying the love and trust built over the years. Only by valuing and safeguarding the purity of marriage can we find lasting happiness and peace of mind. 8. Do not steal. Do not take what does not belong to you. Thomas was a kind-hearted boy, but he was also quite mischievous. One day, while playing with his friends, he spotted a brand new bicycle belonging to a neighbor. The bike was beautiful and appealing, making Thomas feel envious. Despite knowing that the bike wasn't his, temptation got the better of him. Thomas came up with the idea to steal the bike when his friend wasn't looking. He secretly took the bike from the yard and rode it a short distance before stopping. At that moment, Thomas felt thrilled to have the beautiful bicycle, but that joy quickly turned into anxiety. He began to worry about the consequences if he was caught. That night, he couldn't sleep, feeling restless and guilty. The next morning, his friend discovered that his bicycle was missing, and the entire village was abuzz with gossip. Thomas felt ashamed and scared of being found out, but he could no longer bear it. Ultimately, his sense of self-respect and remorse drove him to return the bicycle to his friend. Thomas approached his friend, confessed to his wrongdoing, and apologized. "I took your bike without asking. I'm really sorry, and I want to give it back." His friend was surprised, but also felt empathy for Thomas. They talked and restored their friendship. Thomas realized that a momentary temptation could not compare to self-respect and true friendship. Lesson: not stealing is not only a social rule, but also a profound moral value. Taking what does not belong to you harms others and ultimately harms yourself. Honesty and respect for others' property will bring peace to your soul and foster good relationships with everyone. 9. Do not bear false witness. Do not lie or bear false witness against others. Emily was kind-hearted and always lived honestly. However, one day she accidentally witnessed an argument between her two friends, Sarah and Jack. In a fit of anger, Sarah said something hurtful about Jack, leading everyone to misunderstand the situation. When the matter escalated to the village authorities, they asked Emily to testify about what she had seen. Although she knew that Sarah had lied, she felt pressured and didn't want to upset her friend. Caught between the two, Emily didn't know what to say. In a moment of hesitation, she decided to stay silent instead of speaking the truth. As a result of her testimony, Sarah was exonerated, but Jack faced serious misunderstandings. Malicious rumors spread throughout the village, and Jack became the target of criticism. Sarah tried to explain that what happened wasn't Jack's fault, but no one believed her. Emily felt guilty and remorseful. She realized that her silence had caused significant harm to Jack. One day she decided to find Jack and apologize. "I'm really sorry for not standing up for the truth. I shouldn't have stayed silent. I want to help you, and I'm willing to speak out to clear your name." Jack was touched by Emily's sincerity and accepted her apology. Emily then stepped forward to testify before the community, restoring Jack's reputation and helping everyone understand the truth. Lesson: Not bearing false witness is not just a moral rule, but also a responsibility. Lying or misrepresenting others not only harms them, but also injures ourselves. Being sincere and having the courage to stand up for the truth fosters trust and peace within the community. 10. Do not covet your neighbor's spouse. Kevin was an honest businessman with a wife and 2 children. Although his life was not wealthy, his family was always happy and warm. One day, a beautiful woman named Lily moved to the village. Lily was a talented artist, and everyone admired her. Kevin was captivated by Lily's beauty and talent. He began to feel admiration and desire for her, even though he knew that Lily was married. Instead of keeping his distance and focusing on his family, Kevin created situations to get closer to Lily. He pretended to help her with her work and participated in activities she organized. Despite knowing that this behavior was wrong, Kevin couldn't restrain his attraction to Lily. One day while Kevin and Lily were working together, Lily looked him straight in the eye and asked, "Why are you acting like this? Don't you have a wife and children?" Lily's unexpected question made Kevin pause and reflect. He realized that his actions were not only unfair to his wife, but could also hurt Lily and her family. Kevin felt regret for what he had done. From that moment, Kevin decided to put an end to his inappropriate thoughts and actions. He focused on building and maintaining happiness for his family. Kevin understood that sincerity and respect are crucial in any relationship, and that one should not covet what does not belong to them. Lesson: not coveting another's spouse is an important moral principle. These improper feelings can cause harm to both oneself and those around them. Respecting the marriages and families of others not only protects one's own relationships but also preserves friendships and peace within the community. 11th, do not covet your neighbor's possessions. Do not desire what others own. Michael worked hard on his field, but his life was always difficult. Meanwhile, Michael's neighbor, a farmer named Henry, was very successful. Henry owned a large field full of lush crops and had a beautiful house. Although Michael knew that Henry had worked hard to achieve what he had, jealousy began to creep into his heart. He often gazed at Henry's field, longing for the things that Henry owned. Michael felt discouraged and unfairly treated because his life wasn't as he wished. One day while working, Michael heard a rumor that Henry intended to sell part of his land. Greed took over, and Michael began to think about buying Henry's land. However, instead of discussing this honestly with Henry, Michael looked for ways to manipulate the situation to buy the land at a low price. When Henry found out about Michael's intentions, he felt very disappointed. He had worked hard to develop his field and couldn't believe that Michael would try to take advantage of him. After reflecting on the situation, Michael realized that his greed had led to selfishness and injustice. He not only hurt Henry, but also jeopardized their friendship. Ultimately, Michael decided to go to Henry and apologize for his greedy thoughts. He expressed his admiration for Henry's achievements and promised not to covet what did not belong to him anymore. Lesson: not coveting the possessions of others is an important moral principle. Jealousy and greed not only harm others, but also destroy oneself. We should learn to appreciate what we have and work hard to improve our own lives instead of longing for what belongs to others. 12th, do not do evil with deceitful hearts. Respect fairness and sincerity in all actions. David was intelligent and talented, but he often used his cleverness to deceive others. He frequently engaged in small scams to make quick money, regardless of the harm it could cause to others. One day, David heard about an entrepreneurship competition being held in the city, where the winner would receive a large cash prize along with an investment opportunity from a famous investor. David decided to enter the competition, but instead of preparing a legitimate business plan, he planned to deceive the judges with a fabricated idea. During the presentation, David confidently showcased his idea, using fake images and figures to make it appear appealing. The judges were impressed and decided to award David the prize. However, after the competition ended, the famous investor requested David to elaborate on his business plan. David was unable to explain and was exposed as a fraud. He was disqualified from the competition, and others began to realize that David was not trustworthy. Faced with this failure, David felt deep regret. He recognized that his deceitful actions had led to negative consequences, not only for himself, but also for others. After careful reflection, David decided to change. He began to work hard and be honest in all his actions, learning to respect fairness and sincerity. Lesson: not doing wrong with deceit is an important principle of life. Fairness and sincerity help build trust in relationships and allow us to grow sustainably. Deceit may bring temporary success, but ultimately it leads to failure and the loss of trust from others. Thank you for following today's content. If you found this article valuable, don't forget to share it with friends and family. Follow me for more insights on money and life. Goodbye, and see you next time.